this is a good mixed group. Every single event that we have had, we've had a good chunk of people who are not Democrats here. I'm just going to talk. It's not a script. I say most of the same stuff. It always comes out a little different. You're all going to ask me questions. Different people who are in different parties who think differently than you might ask me questions. If me or if one of your neighbors says something and it makes your face scrunch up and get all judgy about it, I want you to remember something that Walt Whitman wrote. And I know that he wrote it because they said so on the TV show Ted Lasso. He said, be curious, not judgmental. So if you can turn your into a you're going to feel better, and you're probably going to have a better ability to listen to that conversation, listen to that question, and maybe get something out of it too. My name is Rob Sand. I was born and raised in Winterset County up in northeast Iowa. My dad's family has been in Winterset County since we got off the boat from Norway, basically. My mom's from Cedar Rapids, Washington grad. The Sands are a Norwegian family. My wife is from the Denison area. Her family is Danish, so it's a mixed marriage. And we have 2 boys in our house and a dog. The boys are Axel, who is 9, and Tate, who is 11. No diapers, no naps, no teenagers. Life is good. When I was growing up, my dad would take me hunting, he'd take me fishing. As a matter of fact, I do most of my bow hunting these days down southwest of Truro, as well as in the urban program in Des Moines. And we would also go to church pretty much every Sunday. Those 3 things are all still important parts of my life. Some people want you to think that those 3 things belong to one political party or the other. I think they just belong to a lot of people who were born and raised in small town Iowa. And it doesn't really matter what politics are. It's about what you're doing. When I first registered to vote, I registered as an independent. I know I'm in a room with mostly Democrats, but I'm going to say it because I always say it. I don't really like political parties. I think that we're supposed to decide what we think based on, number 1, figuring out what the truth is. And then number 2, once you know what the truth is, doing the right thing. And whether or not a bunch of people who are waving the same color flag or having the same letter behind their name think it's a good thing or a bad thing, probably shouldn't have much of an impact on it, right? I heard the same thing when I was little. The rest of you heard. If your friends jumped off a bridge, would you too? I took that to mean that I probably should think for myself, and I extended that to politics. Now that said, I registered early as a Democrat because I learned early that we have a law that I would consider very un-American in the state of Iowa, and that is that independent voters are less equal than everyone else. Because if you want to vote in a primary in the state of Iowa, you literally cannot be a registered independent voter. Let me rephrase this to help you understand just how ridiculous it is. In order to exercise your constitutional right to vote in an election that your tax dollars paid for, you have to join a private club first. You gotta be kidding me. I would love to change that. But back then, I said, well, that sucks. I guess I'll register as a Democrat. And I registered as a Democrat because I think Jesus is for the little guy, and because I remember a Democratic president around that time balancing the budget and using the surplus to pay down the debt. And I knew what debt was because I'd taken a loan out from my parents to buy a mountain bike. And when I would open the cereal cabinet every morning, there was that sheet of paper with the amount of money that I owed my parents. And I would think about all the CDs I wasn't buying at Walmart with my money that I was earning from catching chickens. That was my first job. And then working at McDonald's. When I finished my education, I went to work at the Attorney General's office. I prosecuted most of Iowa's public corruption in that time frame. The Iowa Film Office tax credit scandal, if you remember that one. And I uncovered the largest lottery rigging scheme in American history. It's a pretty crazy story. I did write a book about it called The Winning Ticket, if you like reading books. There's courtroom drama. There's also, if courtroom drama isn't enough for you, there's Bigfoot hunters involved. Like literally people who show up in the woods to look for Sasquatch. And if that isn't enough for you, I don't know what your problem is. And if you're not the book reading type, there's a documentary that you can stream for free at lottodoc.com. It's called Jackpot. I also prosecuted quite a bit of violent crime, quite a few assault cases, sex abuse cases, you name it. You can do a lot of good things in law enforcement, a lot of proactive things. You can save somebody's life, you can help find a missing kid. By the time it comes to a prosecutor, we are only really dealing with the absolute worst things that human beings do to each other. And if that's the only thing that you think about day in, day out, well, for me, after a few years, it started to make my lens a little darker that I was using to look at the world. And I thought, well, I'd like to do something more proactive. I don't just want to react to bad stuff. And I thought about the work I had done getting a skate park built in Decorah, which might sound like a curveball, because I like to go to church, I like to hunt, I like to fish, but I know you know what it's like to be in a small town. In a small town, you can do everything. And I was a skateboarder too. And I spent 2 years getting that skate park built. It's still there. When we were home for my dad's 75th birthday, I was watching kids skate on it, right? It was a great project where people who thought differently from each other, skateboarders and property owners who did not really like skateboarders on their property, worked together to build a skate park. You will notice that this is a theme, not just tonight, but for the next 14 months. When people who think differently from each other work together, that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. And so I thought of that project and thought, well, what can I do? Now, I have noticed over the years some changes that I thought should happen at the auditor's office. That's because the auditor does Iowa's public corruption investigations, and those investigations would land on my desk for me to figure out who I thought needed to be charged with any crimes. And they did a good job in their investigations from the perspective of the auditors and accountants that they were. But I was working with these investigations in a courtroom. And a courtroom is a different situation. It wasn't that the people who were doing it didn't do a good job, it's that none of them thought about how it would work in court and didn't have the training to think about it. Again, they needed somebody who thought differently than them to actually help their work do a better job in a courtroom. And I thought, well, if I ran with my courtroom experience, that would help. But I also thought that one reason wasn't enough to drop everything and run for statewide office. And so I did something I'm going to admit. You may think less of me after I tell you this, but I've always done it in my life, and it always has worked out. I did my homework. I sat down and I read Chapter 11 of the Iowa Code 3 times. And when I read Chapter 11 of the Iowa Code, I found something really exciting. No one's ever going to tell you that again, by the way. In fact, if you're having trouble sleeping tonight, Chapter 11 of the Iowa Code. In Chapter 11, it makes it very clear that the auditor's office has this tremendous capacity to promote government efficiency. I want to be state auditor. I knew they weren't really doing that. I could run and win and start saving money for taxpayers left and right by just starting that government efficiency program they already had the permission to have. Perfect. So I ran in 2018 and I won, and we started that program. It's called PI. PI stands for Public Innovations and Efficiencies. It's got 500 participating entities every single year, usually from all 99 counties, cities, school districts. We give them a checklist of things they can do to save money, ask them to tell us what they're doing and what they're not, ask them to send it back again the next year, and hopefully they've implemented a few more programs. It's so good at saving money that it has been copied in 2 other states, one Democratic, one Republican. Also, it gives us an opportunity to lift up good public servants. We have a pie contest every year. So the best performing cities, counties, and school districts get an award. And yes, that award is pie. And yes, I stick around to help them celebrate. Great way to save taxpayer money, great way for me to eat more dessert. If you follow me on social media, you know I like dessert. We also took a stand. I'll go through these a little bit quickly here. We changed the rules in the auditor's office so that you can now live anywhere in the state if you're working for the state auditor's office. It used to be that you had to live in Des Moines, Ames, and Iowa City. Why? We work in all 99 counties. I remember growing up in Decorah what would happen when a family left town, how it felt. For the whole town, even if it wasn't people that you knew, right? Because your town sinks or swims by the family. If we could get people who work for the state of Iowa, not ask them to move, but just let them be in small towns and communities across the state of Iowa, that's a good thing. Your tax dollars are paying for state government. You should be able to have people here who do those jobs who are also contributing to your community too, just by living here. I took a solitary stand against your tax dollars getting used for the most egregious sexual harassment lawsuits. There's a law in the books in the state of Iowa that allows us to go after people who have wronged someone as a public employee when their wrong is not just bad enough to get sued, but willful and wanton, a higher standard, right? Well, we're talking about cases like that of Dave Jamison, where we had to settle for $4 million with the targets of his sexual harassment while he was running the Iowa Finance Authority. $4 million. I said, well, are we going to use this law? I couldn't get anyone to tell me yes. This guy's IPERS payout is probably over $1 million over the course of his retirement. And he's going to get it. All I could get were bad answers. Why are we going to do this? Well, we've never used that law before. Maybe we should start. Well, what if we discourage, by using this law, what if we discourage people from coming into public service? I would love to discourage some people from coming into public service. I don't want Dave Jamison doing public service. It's not public service the way he does it. It was awkward. I voted against it even though I voted by myself. It was hard being in that room, having people knowing that they were uncomfortable, I was uncomfortable. I'm not going to go along with doing the wrong thing just because it's uncomfortable for me or for the people that I'm with. I'm going to do the right thing for you, even though you're not in the room. And that's true as state auditor and it'll be true as governor. I promise you that. A record amount of misspent money. How did we do that? Again, by people who think differently working together. When I got elected in 2018, one of my first decisions was who are going to be the deputies in this office? The people in the highest positions, right? I picked an independent and a Republican who had both made campaign contributions to my opponent. Why did I do that? People who really like politics are like, Sam, you dummy. You're supposed to punish people who oppose you. If you promote them, how are you going to teach people to be scared of you? I have two answers to that. Number one, no one's ever going to be scared of me. Look at this face. I'm 43, I swear. That's what my driver's license says, and I'm sticking with it. Number two, what if I don't want to do politics? What if I want to do public service? Public service is the idea of the words we don't hear anymore, statesman, stateswoman. Someone who's just trying to solve problems for people, and they understand that they're just one person, and they may have an important role, but they don't just get to dictate what happens, they're there to serve everybody. If you're going to do that, you got to work with people who disagree with you, who may have even opposed you. That, to me, sounds like the right thing to do. And it helped us uncover a record amount of misspent money, because what are we doing? We're admitting that maybe sometimes we're slightly incorrect, right? Grandpa used to say, I've never been wrong. I thought I was wrong once, but it turns out I was mistaken. Even a blind hog finds an acorn every now and then, right? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. We should want people around us who think differently, because every once in a while, we might say nothing, but we think to ourselves, oh, it's actually kind of a good point. I'm taking too long tonight. Now, what was the response to us uncovering a record amount of misspent money in my first term? You, as Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, you re-elected me to keep doing the job. What was the response from the folks in Des Moines to Democrats, Independents, and Republicans re-electing me to keep doing the job? They literally passed a law to make it harder for us to find misspent money. Their attitude was, hey, the Sand guy's doing his job. We've got to stop him. Unbelievable. 8 different categories of documents your auditor's office can no longer look at. If you think that there's any defense for this law, let me tell you, every single government watchdog agency, every single auditing entity in the entire country that weighed in on this said, this is a bad bill, you should not pass it. It will lead to an increase in waste, fraud, and abuse of tax dollars. All of them. George W. Bush's Comptroller General of the United States of America wrote 2 letters to our legislature to say, what are you doing? This is a really bad idea. But this is also common sense. I don't need to tell you that the experts said so, because you know what happens if the auditor can't look somewhere. Let's say you're driving home tonight, and you look in the rearview mirror, and there's a police officer. Where do your eyes go next? Spit on that. One guy one time said beer can. I think about him a lot. I hope everybody's okay. What if you had a rule that said no law enforcement allowed to patrol on county roads? What do you think is going to happen on county roads, right? This is what they're doing in Des Moines. They're literally passing a law that says, well, we don't want people looking over here. What do we think now is going to happen over there? In the Lord's Prayer, we pray, lead us not into temptation. And this law just says, nah, here's a lot of it. Temptation for everyone. What have we gotten out of this lately in the state of Iowa? An economy that is in 49th place in the country. Personal income growth that is in 48th place in the country. These are numbers from the Trump administration. We have the #1 growth rate for cancer, Iowa. And we have an education system that is an embarrassment to our heritage. We were the best. Every single year when I was growing up in Decorah, the numbers would come out. The numbers would come out, and we would be #1, maybe #2, and we would say, Minnesota, we're coming for you. Right? We are now outranked by Nebraska. I know. You gotta laugh so you don't cry. This isn't good enough. We put on our quarter. What do kids in Iowa hear from their parents right now if they say, Mom, why does our quarter say foundation and education? What do we tell them? Well, we used to be good at this. This is what the people in Des Moines have brought us after 10 years of one-party control. 10 years of one-party control. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, that's right, Rob, we only just need to have the other party have 10 years of one-party control, I invite you to visit California or New York. Yeah. This is human nature. This isn't about political parties. It's about a small group of people who, after 10 years of all the power, what happens? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And now we can answer that. And in Iowa, it takes about 10 years. It makes me think of one of my favorite stories from the New Testament. It always stuck out to me my entire life, the story did. And it's the one where Jesus flips over the tables of the money changers in the temple. I know why that story stuck out to me. Because normally Jesus would say things like, love your neighbor, welcome the stranger, clothe the naked, feed the hungry, heal the sick, love your enemy, turn the other cheek. But he saw people in what he called his house. It was supposed to be a house of prayer. And he told them, you've turned this into a house of robbers. Taking advantage of their positions of trust. Taking advantage of their positions of power, not to serve ordinary people, but to serve themselves. And he got angry. Normally, super nice guy. But he flipped their tables over. And he told him to scram. Because he wasn't having it. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some tables in Des Moines right now that very much need flipping. Happy to take questions. You can just raise your hand if you got one.